Hi, beautiful friends. Welcome to Elemental Connections, where we're giving voice to the unseen realms of nature. And today's beautiful guest is Liv Mokai Wheeler. Welcome, Liv.
Thank you.
It's really nice to have you here. I'm really excited to continue talking with you. We've just been chatting a little bit, haven't we? And it's been like,
totally.
I'm just like, oh my God, I really should press record.
I know, I feel like by now there's like fae flying around and there's little flowers that are blooming, and there's a lot. It feels like that's getting activated.
Nice. So if I just introduce you, as you call yourself a Kontomble voice diviner and an international ritual facilitator and multidimensional spiritual teacher. So I just want to dive in first with the word Kontomble for anybody. I mean, I'd never heard of it before coming across your work. So yeah, if you'd like to just speak to who they are.
So some people, maybe, who knows, maybe they've heard of Malidoma Somé. So Malidoma was or has been, he's still a mentor of mine. I was guided, I guess you could say intuitively or by spirit, in 2005 to study with Malidoma. It was this really kind of magical, synchronistic way that it felt almost like his book fell into, or one of his books fell into my hand. And when I started reading this book of Water and the Spirit, then I just had this knowing that I was meeting my teacher. And so I started studying and with him, so that was 2005, and I studied and apprenticed with him for 8 years. And that really, I was a little bit deep in, or starting to get deeper into my shamanic journey. I mean, it seems to be like the easiest way to call us kind of like bridge people, or use it like anyway. So for now, I'll say shamanic, understanding that word comes from a particular culture anyway. But so that was, I had already started on my shamanic journey, and then when I met him and when I started studying with them, it just really ignited this whole remembering. And then Malidoma he lives in the United States, but he's an elder from the Dagara tribe of Burkina Faso, West Africa, and it ignited this whole remembering. And so the Kontomble are the Dagara, that's their name for the little people, and who are these multidimensional, multifaceted beings that are ultimately from the stars. And through my studies and unfolding journey with Malidoma, it brought me to Burkina and to seemingly the most remote villages, mostly when I was with him, and sometimes I went on my own, and then I would still somehow get led to these like diviners' huts, so to speak. But I've been to Burkina now 5 times and spent like at least a month there each time, and going into these like deep initiatory experiences. And what would happen is, seemingly no matter which diviner I went to or which like hut I found myself at, I would keep being reminded of these Kontomble that are with me and that have been with me since birth. And I somehow have been able to access. When I first was there with Malidoma, the first female diviner that I started my work with, she was really almost like perplexed how I was connected to them in these ways, having not been there in this lifetime, having not been initiated. And somehow it's like that. But so those are the little people of Burkina. And what I've since learned, what would happen is I would go to Burkina and I would come back to the United States, and I'd have these really super
Okay, so we just dropped out for a minute there, so we're just going to pick up from where you were.
Okay, so yeah, as I recall, I was mentioning my friend Cliff from the Ponca tribe and how he started sharing with me stories from his culture and the experiences that he had had with little people, mostly going to native ceremonies, and our connection. It seemed to birth this whole almost other greater thing or this greater remembering. And I later learned that he on his own had been kind of like collecting these stories about the little people over the years, from different, not, not specifically Ponca ceremonies, but the different native ceremonies that he had experienced, and the sweat lodges and the like the sun dance, um, and then little did I know the Kuntumle would end up in my deepening and my, I could say, remembering of my connection with them. So the more they've been taking me through a deconditioning, I would say, for the past, well, since 2005. So it's been a little while now. And then through this deconditioning of my kind of modern mind, then my senses, my extra senses have come more online or more alive. And then little did I know that they would guide me to these different places around the earth that and help people remember too that there are little people from all cultures. And as I was telling you before we started recording, that one of my friends from the Lakota tradition, he's told me about, you know, 5 different little people from the Lakota tradition, from the Lakota culture, from what's currently called the United States. That's one of the tribes that has a like stronger culture as far as like basically who was able to survive like all the colonization and keep their ways alive. um, but what Cliff and I have kind of discovered together is that, so what I've noticed is the little people around the earth at present day, well, they've been relegated to fairy tale or to like fable. And well, we all, you know, modern folk obviously know that they've been like, as I experience it, have been cast into the land of the make believe, as have so many incredible beings of the other world. And so there are some people who believe that they don't exist. There are some cultures who still know that they do. And and then what I've noticed with that is they're either like they're feared sometimes, and I believe that's due to religious colonization. So sometimes, for example, friends from the Philippines, they know their name for the little people, as I've been told, is the duendes. They know the duendes are real. And they even have a way to say when you're going through nature, it's basically a way, I think it's a tabi tabi po. It's a way of basically saying, excuse me, I don't want to step on your home. So they know that they're real, but they fear them. And I believe that's due to religious colonization. And then I noticed they also have a reputation for being like tricksters or pranksters. And uh, I have met some of them like that, but I noticed they can have like a jovial way, but I feel that's also I feel that's also a deduction. The way I personally experience them around the earth, and when I say around the earth, I'm saying, you know, most recently I've been in Mongolia, New Zealand, I mean, different places around the earth, like different terrains. And even I could be in the wilds of Mongolia, or I was in the wilds of Mongolia, and I can talk to the shamans there and ask them, okay, who are your little people? And describe them a little bit, and they'll know. So it's essentially the ones that are, the more connected they are, or the less colonized they've been, or the less modernized they've been, like the deeper the stories go. The way I experience the Kontomble, and they'll connect me to the little people in, you know, Hawaii. That would be the Menehune, and it goes on and it goes on and it goes on. The way I experience them is they're ancient and they're deep, and they I'll speak most specifically about the Kontomble because those are the ones that I connect with every day, and they know the story of the earth. And so they know, they can tell you about the most ancient rituals that were practiced in any part of the earth. And and also they know when a person or a community is ready to hear that, or what they most need to hear is we need to get over our selfishness. So mostly, more often than not, what I hear them telling people is like, basically we need to get over ourselves. When I'm sitting with a community of people that are like really sincere in their practices, and they're really maybe like practicing humbleness or just like a deep kind of authenticity, and they're showing up very sincerely. I love when I sit in ceremonies like that, because I'll hear them go really, really, really deep in these kind of transmissions about the earth and what's happening with these underwater pyramids, and so on and so forth. But we were in the wilds of Mongolia, and I'm thinking, they're gonna, because on some level I knew it was the mountain spirits, the nature spirits that had almost felt like they summoned me. And then I'll talk to the shamans there and I'll say, I couldn't stop thinking about Mongolia. Do you know why I was called here? And I won't tell them what I know already. And they'll say, yeah, the mountains called you here. I could be, wherever, even that could happen. I mean, it's happened in a lot of different places by now. But, and so I'm thinking, when I'm sitting with this group of women that have traveled from different places there, that felt the call in their own different ways, that's immediately what we're going to go into, is hearing about these, ancient gods, goddesses live in the mountains and what they want to tell us. But if they sense that there are these huge traumas that are still in our system that haven't been metabolized, then that's exactly where they're going to go. And they're going to go there, because once those traumas get surface and then we're able to emote them and metabolize them, then we're in an energy field even able to responsibly be with the messages that are coming from these old gods and goddesses.
Yeah.
And that feels important somehow to say, because I understand when people get called to connect with spirit for different ways, or sometimes it is like a bypassing thing, where we feel the human experience is so like god awful, and we're imagining these like magical beings and this, like this desire. I just have such strong chills while I'm talking, but this desire to maybe return to that magical place that we do know.
Totally, I so resonate with that. And earlier, when we were talking at the beginning, and I was saying that I felt like I hadn't really been connecting with the elemental beings that I'm used to connecting with. I felt like I hadn't had that connection, and what I was beginning to recognize, what's been going on for me this year, is I've had a lot of grief, and I just have to go deep. There's a deep darkness in me that I have to go to. And what I was seeing is that, like, it's so easy for me just to hang out in this like beautiful realm of love that I see interwoven in nature. So yeah, I really felt like, as you were speaking then, it's like, oh, that's my story this year. That's
I was wondering, I was like, what am I talking about?
Yeah, totally. And I think this is what I love so much about your work, is the depth of healing that these realms are offering and supporting us with. And like you say, it's not just about going into the airy fairy, yes, that's there, it's a pathway there, but there and I feel like I'm being initiated right now into a much deeper aspect of myself. So I really,
I sometimes, I don't know, like I sometimes joke with friends and I say, like, I don't know that the Kontomble are for the masses, it's like, it's not, they're not. I meet different beings organically, and I also meet different beings with different people that I work with. And when I sit in different communities, I'll experience different beings. And the angels, for example, when I experience the angels, to me, I always experience them as very peaceful and peace. Well, usually that's what I experience when I experience the angels. It feels lovely, those aren't the beings that I'm with. And these Kontomble, they're
They're
truly,
feisty.
they
I
are, they
feel like
are.
the. I mean, I haven't
Oh, they
really.
are. No, they
They,
are. They are feisty.
I was.
They can't be tamed. They're not. They're beings of the wilderness, and it can be a very fierce medicine, because they're fiercely protecting nature, and they're
Yeah.
also fiercely trying to protect our nature, and they're kind of, a lot of times when they're talking to people, it can feel like a really icy cold, like, bucket of water dumped on their head. Um, because they experience us entranced by modernity,
Hmm.
entranced by the illusion, seduced on the daily by the illusion. And if you experience an icy cold, like, bucket on your head, you're like, oh, what just happened? It wakes you up. So
Hmm.
it can be really jolting to the nervous system, also, like a jolting kind of. But that's exactly it. I think maybe if they knew another way, they would go for the other way, but I think that's actually what they see as necessary.
Yeah. So it's
um,
not so much that's their nature. It's just that they recognize that that's what we need. Like that's the medicine we need. Do
uh,
you think? Or.
yeah, I mean, there is a really strong, bold way that they do talk, and also I feel that there's a extra kind of, like, fierceness that has to do with the intensity of the trance that they perceive us in. And
Hmm.
the interesting thing is too, there's a village of them that are with me, and there'll be different ones that come in and talk according to their specialization, and according to whomever they're talking to, and they move in and out so fast according to the moment and what wisdom is needed. And it's really interesting because they can talk to a person to person, and they sound radically different. Because let's say a person is showing up and they're heart centered, and they're not like in their fierce guard and their armor, and this is who I am, and this is what I'm about, and I know who I am, and I know all of it. I know everything because I I'm a well-educated person, and I know that I know, like that, which a lot of us, very, can be. Anyway, you can imagine. And then somebody shows up and they're like in their heart, and they're not guarded, and they're just grateful to connect, and that's their energy field. And I'll feel the most sensitive of the Kontomble amongst them come forward, and just like,
Hmm.
it's a love, like, oh, love overflowing. It's so enjoyable to experience that energy. It's pure love.
Hmm.
um but with the other one, they might be like, it comes through like a crack of lightning or something. But that's how many layers deep, how many layers deep of sometimes even steel and concrete and everything to get to that person's nature. That's actually what they're trying to get to, is their true nature, their authenticity. And it is different. It is different. So they're not always like that. And um, I believe they're brilliant. I experience them enough that they have a real brilliance about them, and I have worked with them for many years now, and I would definitely not say that I understand them. I stay like humble and just, I don't know. How are they going to show up today? We don't know. Let's see. I learned that it's wise to say, I don't know. I don't know. They could be this way. This could be this way. We don't know. They like when we acknowledge that we don't know. We're like, it's very fertile.
Hmm.
But I've seen also, like, yeah, I've seen all different kinds of things. It's interesting. They're not always fierce, but what I have learned about nature too, nature sometimes needs to be fierce to bring awareness. Even, you can imagine, in the desert, like the example comes of the cactus, and maybe the person is walking through the desert and they're not fully in their body, and then all of a sudden you get pricked by something in nature. And sometimes people say, these nature
Yeah.
spirits, they're
Yeah.
teachers about awareness, and you get pricked and you're like, whoa, but it brought
Yeah.
you into your body, didn't
I
it?
I had a from what I've been going through recently, I went massively into my head, and it was it was just, it was a really weird experience. I was so in my head for quite a while, and I was just trying to like contain all of my feelings because it was all so overwhelming. And I'm living in an area where there's a lot of deer, and I
Oh,
actually hit a deer with my car. I mean, I've never had
oh,
to, and that being one of my sort of spirit animals as well, I feel
oh,
really
wow.
connected to. And I ran over its legs, and
Oh,
it was just the worst, like just a hideous experience. But I went,
oh,
once I had like grieved a lot and cried a lot, I went into a really beautiful, it was like a really deeply shamanic experience where I was with the spirit
mm,
of that being and the mother that was with it. And the message that I got was that I had
mm,
been shocked back into my heart center. It was like nature, like,
mm,
and I was shown like the precision for that to happen was
mm,
just like,
mm,
it was such a shock. It was such a
mm.
shock to, yeah,
And that's the beauty too, because you are connected in the ways that you are, you're able to experience this lesson in a way that's not confined only to what our physical eyes can see.
yeah,
And that feels important to say, because sometimes I'll hear people communicate about it in the way of the five sensory human or the multi-sensory human. Or I read recently this book, The Seat of the Soul, um, and I appreciated like his way of describing them. Like, oh yeah, yeah, exactly, that's the way I experience it too. It's because we're more than the five senses, or we have the capacity to be, but then when, because of the way a lot of children have been or are still being conditioned, they come in open, multisensory, as all babies are, as all little ones are, and they talk about their friends that the adults can't see, and the adult gets uncomfortable, and they're like, no, that's your imaginary friend, that's not your friend, that's your imaginary friend. And they're like, okay. And then the fracturing starts to happen. And then, because one of the biggest things that I hear from people who are trying to reconnect, who sincerely want to, is they'll ask, or they'll say, oh, I heard this message, but I don't know, maybe I was making it up. It's what, so we've been conditioned to believe that it's this little, imaginary, and that's where fantasy and, folklore and mythology and everything, the inference or the like explicit definition is that that's not real, and this
yeah,
is what's real. What we experience in this five sensory world is the only thing that's real. And I feel that really, really, really um, limits the human experience, the richness of the human experience, and also inhibits or prohibits greater spiritual understanding or greater spiritual comprehension that would enable us to grow spiritually, grow in our soul's development, which is, I feel, very important.
yeah, I agree.
So
I
you
agree.
had that experience, and you were
Yeah,
able to, and have the deep experience, not detaching from the real experience with the mother and the baby deer, and being really connected to it as like a totem. I
yeah,
also love the deer so much, um, and feel that they have, what we would consider like higher wisdom or higher consciousness,
yeah,
and you know,
yeah. Yeah, I really agree with you on I think the piece around people's imagination, like we've been taught that it's fantasy, and what I've learned through this journey, it's what I would call like the gateway into these hidden realms often. And
yeah,
and as you were talking about earlier, a lot of these beings where they've been put into like this fantasy realm in like books, and but actually I've seen, a lot of those illustrations are very accurate, and to some
right.
to what I've seen, not all of it, but
Oh, okay. Oh, so you
that
actually see them
yeah, some beings, yeah,
with your third eye.
yeah, yeah. So I've
Yeah.
connected with,
Oh, that's beautiful.
Yeah, yeah, I've connected with a few different beings. I had a gnome being that came at one
Oh,
point,
the gnomes.
and a leprechaun like last year. He's hilarious. He's really
I
funny.
love the leprechauns. I
Yeah.
experienced Ireland for the first time, well, in this lifetime, mostly recently. And oh yeah, I was feeling, I was like, wow, there's like all sorts of little people here. They're amazing, like all in the nature too in Ireland. I was like, woo.
I bet.
They're alive. They're
and
alive in Ireland.
and are you talking? Can you connect with them in the way that you do with the Kontomble? Do you have
Oh
like,
yeah, yeah.
yeah? So you're having that inner
They
dialogue and seeing them, and or
yeah, I
actually
mean,
you don't even have inner dialogue, do you? That's something we haven't
no,
touched on, is that the Kontomble actually speak through you as well.
yeah, they speak through me. And um I mean, to me, when I meet these little people around the earth, to me they feel like family. And so it's just like a joyful experience. I'll go and I'll feel these old trees. And in Ireland, I don't know, it was so cool. We were in Ireland, and then I went to Wales.
Oh,
And yeah, it was, yeah, I was especially in Ireland, I was experiencing some really, really incredible beings. But what I was also experiencing, though, I just made a post about this today on Instagram, because I've experienced this so much lately with nature deities around the earth, is they come, when I hear them, they speak sometimes very, very fierce too. And I've heard them talk a lot lately about like kind of warning humans about not believing that we own nature and we own the earth. Um, and I hear a lot of humans talking about, like, that's my land and that's my parcel or that's my whatever. And uh, what I believe and what feels in harmony with these beings too is we can tend to the land. We
mm-hmm.
can love it. Like, for example, I have ancestors, like a lot of people in the United States have ancestors from Ireland, ancestors from Wales. I don't go there saying, oh yeah, this is my ancestors' land. It's like, no, my ancestors loved that land. I love that land too. Not getting into because they're showing that when we believe we possess it, we're being possessed by something. And allowing that, like, gripping and
Mm.
energy and emotion, as I experience it, wants to have movement. And when we grip into constructs, we grip into ideas. And I hear the Kontomble talk about, like, humans are very, like, grabby, that almost like denotes the modern human. And it's in the English language and all of that, like the possessions. Is it she or hers, or is it he or his, all of that. But yeah, and so I do hear them. And it can be surreal. When we first flew into Ireland, I loved it. I'll feel this whole wave of um it's like a goddess, like
I'm getting images of them all kind of going, yay, she's
yeah,
arrived, she's
it was so
here.
beautiful. And they'll start telling me things, and there's like this goddess that, I'm like trying to drive a car on the other side of the street that I'm used to. And I'm like talking to Sylvia. I'm like, whoa, like the goddess is saying these things. And then she's talking about, and then she's telling me about the language. And, I'm like, ooh, maybe I should pull over. And then, all these, like, woodland creature or beings, come out, and it's really exciting. But then what I found too is sometimes when I would share about it, because that's the way Kontomble encourages me to do, um, to share, to share openly, to move through the realm of taboo, and to
Mm-hmm.
to create the space or the comfort or the ease, to and let this be as normal as anything else we could talk about,
Mm-hmm.
and to allow it to move through the film of taboo.
Yeah.
And so I do. And I found it really intense. Some people were communicating with me, and they're like, you know it felt like I was experiencing what the nature deities were saying. It's kind of like, these are our gods and goddesses, and this is,
So you were
we
talking to the
know, or
locals. You were talking like,
No, I was, even what I was like sharing on Instagram, it wasn't something that
okay,
I was experiencing a lot, but I even, was hearing this one woman say, my ancestors are from, and I was thinking, my ancestors are from that place too. And so it means
yeah,
what?
yeah,
But that also was something I've learned about ancestors, is that of course, I'm only, anything I say is I'm speaking from my own personal experience.
hmm,
What I've experienced about ancestors also is that we have many ancestors that are stuck. That's what we were going to Ireland to do. I got called by spirit to go to Ireland to help stuck ancestors, not necessarily that we're in the land there, but many of us who are descended from our ancestors come from Ireland, is to come back there and to do the healing, to do the repair,
yeah.
to repair that, like, in a sense, like this cycle of abuse that's ensued. And so to kind of go back to the source. And
Where were you going back
um,
to?
Ireland.
And then, oh, I thought you said, wait, you meant like the source of where that kind of that disharmony began. I'm just,
Well, I believe, I don't, I am not speaking from like a historical, like, I don't know, I'm not speaking from what I've learned in books or
yeah,
anything. It's
yeah,
more going from feeling of
yeah.
what happened. And even I, it was really interesting. I actually got in a car accident, small, tiny, only because I was in small, tiny roads in Ireland. I was like, whoa, the road is so small. And it was like a country road. I'm like, from the United States where the roads are huge. And I was like, oh my God, I'm on the driving on the other side that I'm used to, and then the other side of the street, and the car comes like, whoo, and I just went like that, and then I was like, oh my God. But the first, and thankfully the woman was so sweet and had insurance, and it was like turned out to be as pleasant as it could have been. But the quick thought that happened, and what I actually believe, was that what spirit told me very rapidly was that that was like, it was like ancestral karma.
Hmm.
And so from my like Irish ancestors, whatever, who knows, maybe they actually were in that very
Oh,
region.
wow,
But it
yeah.
was like, okay, well, hopefully you're happy now. like just, took care of that karma. Like, can we get this on a good foot? But that's a lot of the work that I've been doing with spirit, is the, healing all the, what people talk about as ancestral patterns and all these things. It's like, oh, that whatever cycle of abuse, that's an ancestral pattern. And the way I experience it is that's actually an ancestor that hasn't transitioned. And because they're in that kind of ghost form, that stuck form, that it's continuing to perpetuate that cycle of abuse, or the alcoholism, or, it goes on and on and on.
Okay, that's really
Yeah.
interesting. I've done a little bit of work with ancestors and stuff, but not a huge amount. So I'm curious as well with, is the term ancestor quite broad? Because would you consider like the little people to be ancestors as well? Like, is
Yeah.
that just a term for any being that's been before?
I mean, I would, yeah, it's interesting you asked that question. I personally would consider like the Kontomble to be ancestors, but then of course we have different aspects of our being. So we have our soul, we have our soul that goes into different lifetimes, and then also we have our physical body, like the ancestry that we're born into. And so both from my soul and also from my physical body, I'm connected to like the wee folk, or from like the fae, or the different names that would be in Wales and Ireland, and these different places that they lived everywhere. And also what I've stumbled upon, and also somehow I know it inside too, is that a lot of our blood ancestries as humans are also mixed with the wee folk. How that happened,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, but somehow I know that's true. And
Mm-hmm.
um, so then it's like, it's so, we are so braided together and woven together. And yeah, so it
Mm.
it feels, it's kind of like yes, and yeah, it goes into these different like braided, ways that we're experiencing ourselves specifically as a body, or those of us who connect in like soul to soul ways, then we understand, you know, we are also more than our physical body.
Yeah. Yeah. So do you feel there's an aspect of you now that's in the elemental realm? Like, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, you
I
ask
feel
interesting questions.
I
I like your
think
questions.
I'm like, oh, I found somebody else who might have similar experiences.
Oh,
So
yeah,
it's
yeah,
kind
yeah.
of like, because
You
I definitely,
ask really interesting questions. You ask the questions of a person who's connected spiritually.
oh,
Yeah, I mean, your questions indicate it points to your connectivity. I've realized when I am able, I love to spend time in Bali. As you know, that's where I am right now. And part of what I love about being in Bali is, well, one, there's, as people would say, like people talk about certain times of the year that the veil is thin. And as I experience here, it's non-existent. And so to me, my experience here in Bali, I'll be like on the back of a scooter and have these experiences all of a sudden, these like transporting experiences where all of a sudden I'm experiencing like Krishna and this holy love or something just going through town or something. Like, whoa, that's
wow.
nice. And so I'd say I learned a lot from the Balinese people when I'm able to spend time here. And it's true both um, in the day-to-day interactions. I love that the Balinese people are so heart-centered, and I resonate more with that. Like, I resonate with a heart-centered culture. You know, people that connect with me, I feel like are very heart-centered. And so I learn, I remember in that way, it's like, it just feels more humane or something to connect through the heart. And in these ways that we're honoring each other's souls, like to greet with a bow. I mean, what a lovely way to meet another person's soul or spirit, and to like infuse the sacred into everyday interaction. And then simultaneously, I feel like when I sleep at night, my spirit is learning from, you know, the great goddess. And, you know, and then I'll wake up and I'll be talking and I'll understand things that I don't know how I understand them. I just know that it's coming from a deep place. And I feel that's what's happening when my my body goes to sleep at night.
Wow, that's really useful.
Thank you.
That makes me want to go to Bali.
Love it.
Yeah, it sounds amazing. And as you were talking then, I've kind of lost the thread, but there was I felt I felt like it was a good point to talk about your school that you've just launched. And I think it was the piece around being around heart-centered people.
Yeah.
You know, and I'm just I'm
I
just
got
seeing.
distracted because I was seeing this like big butterfly being by, you know, I was like, that's nice. You and I are both like, we lost our thread.
I
It's
did.
just
I
like
was
all
just
these like nature beings.
that's really funny. And I was just seeing you. I was just like looking into your like creation for yourself of creating this beautiful life with all these amazing people around you that get this work. I was like, wow, that looks really nice.
Yeah, we both are like seeing into each other's like, whoa, that's so cool. Yeah, love of creation.
Oh, it's funny.
I can tell you that, yeah, I think they're just laughing at us. They're like, oh, this, they get so distracted by their human form. um, yeah, the school, I'm excited about that. And the Kontomble, they were giving me, I guess, I was receiving that vision for a lot of years, maybe at least, excuse me, 10 years. um, and every time I would have that vision, I would think, oh, this must be the time. But now in hindsight, I was so green on my path. And I would have been able to do something, you know, that would have helped people a little bit maybe. But I wasn't uh, matured enough in the particular uh, school of wisdom that I'm connected to with the Kontomble. It wasn't time. And so um, each time I would be like, oh, I think this is about, no, it just didn't feel. And then now it just all, it was time. And um, so I was telling you before we started recording that it's funny because I literally like had the pen ready. I'm like, okay, what I know so far, it's a 9-month journey. You know, each will be meeting for 9 months, 3 times a month, and we'll be meeting online through Zoom. I love we connect with people different, you know, around the world. So it's nice that we can connect in that way. And they wanted the training to happen in Aotearoa, New Zealand, in December of 2020, um, and so I'd have my pen ready, like, okay, I know you're probably not going to tell me a lot. Like, what are the basic lessons that each month is going to comprise of? And I consider myself a multidimensional teacher in the sense that I'm connected, as you are, to these different dimensions of being. And so when I teach or share, um, I might have like a basic lesson. Okay, we're talking about offerings. And then I'll be sharing from my lived experience, and then they'll be telling me things to say, and it'll be describing it in ways that I've never heard it described before. So maybe it's a 3-hour class, and then I'm hearing it for the first time during the session, and I'm explaining it, and it's just happening in the moment. And so that's why I say multidimensional teacher, because it's happening from different dimensions and happening in the moment. But so I was thinking at least I would get the lesson. Okay, it's going to be this and this. We'll talk about offerings. We'll talk about making.
Really
And
funny.
then, yeah, it is funny. I think they just enjoy laughing. I think there's a whole village that just love laughing at me. And then every time I'll write it down, I see them like crumbling it up and throwing it out the window. And I was like, okay. So, and there was a huge, all I knew before was that the school would be helping people to come into their medicine, which I know that's not a small thing, you know, to support their coming into their medicine specific to their soul's purpose. So I knew that wasn't a small thing, and I felt that would be enough. And and then it was specifically around the what happened with the Amazon recently, and the Amazon, like the burning of the trees. And I didn't realize my friend Cliff that I mentioned earlier, he was with us in the last ritual that I had in the United States, in California, in this town called Ojai. The Kontomble were coming through, and they were seemingly livid. They were so upset. And I didn't know, I had no idea why they were so upset. And I just knew they were so upset. And they were going into this whole teaching about um, you know, consumer culture, and you know, going and ordering your latte, and do you need do you want double cup so you don't have to burn your hands? And they were saying, and if you don't feel the burn, who is? If you're not willing to feel the burn, then who is? And they kept saying that. And the Kontomble are so multidimensional, and they kept like, it was like they were searing through this message. And later when we heard about that, like through social media, Cliff was telling me, like, and a couple of people told me that's what they were talking about. And I was like, oh my God, it's so true. That's what they were talking about. They do sometimes talk in these like riddled ways, and they're like, get it, you know? But meanwhile, of course, they're able to see that, and they're watching it, and they're, you know, sending through these lessons, you know, that basically they're saying this is coming through our like overindulgence, and um, as like consumer culture and everything. So with the school, especially with that happening, they were insisting that the primary focus be the earth. You know, we're showing up for the earth. We're showing up as international community for the earth, not getting into what can happen as like the selfishness of, oh, I want to know what my medicine is. And not to say there's anything wrong with that. Like, of course, we want to know what do we have to offer to the world. And also there's trappings in there that can happen, you know, like that it can become so much about us, and there can be a grandiosity that quickly ensues with that. And so they're saying we we need to get our priorities together, come together with our priorities in check. Like, we are here on the earth has generously given us life. And if you imagine the earth in its more pristine form, then there's these pure flowing waters that give us water, and the earth generously gives us food. And when you just imagine earth in her pristine form, which she was, which she still is in certain places, she gives us everything we need.
Mm-hmm.
She has given us everything we need without condition. Not, oh, I'm going to give to certain people and not the others. Oh, I don't know. I don't believe what you believe in. It's unconditional love.
Mm-hmm.
And so the Kontomble and these little people of the earth are, always experience them as earth guardians. You know, they're protecting these sacred places. And in Standing Rock, my friend Cliff was telling me, or this elder that we talked to at Standing Rock, um, was saying that, you know, one of the first in that camp, like one of the first offerings that was made was like a bow and arrow to the little people. They were calling to the little people, and they were showing up as like guardians. Water is life. And so the Kontomble came in with this really strong message and insisting that the school be earth focused. And I've picked up on this in different places that I've traveled, but for sure I feel these unresolved traumas, they're in the earth, they're embedded in the earth. And um, it inhibits the flow of energy, of chi, and it also, as they show, it makes humans sick. And so when you're in wild nature, nature that really hasn't been touched so much by humans, you're like some places in the wilds of Mongolia, the women that we were traveling with, we would go into these like ecstatic spaces that it was simply from experiencing nature there. We'd be like, wow, and you feel so good. That's actually being with the energy of raw nature. And then, but what's happened in so many places by now is the wars and the violence and the killing and all of that, and it never got resolved energetically, spiritually, and so those traumas are embedded in the earth. And until they're resolved meaning actually come out of the earth and heal, just as we can in our physical bodies when we have the traumas in our bodies. If they're not, then whomever is inhabiting that place can get, they wouldn't just say can get sick, they said will get sick. Mm-hmm. They do get sick. We just don't understand why we're sick. And so while earlier I was saying, you know, one way that we can resolve that is by all of us taking responsibility for our ancestors and helping to heal the ones that are stuck. And another way is to go directly and support the earth and going into these healings that they're teaching or they're showing, which will release that trauma from the earth. And then there's the free flowing energy again. And then the people that are there would be well again, or could be well. And so that's more of what they're asking, is to be like the central focus. And what I've realized too, I hear Brene Brown. Do you know who Brene Brown is? Who talks a lot about vulnerability. I totally love her.
Yeah.
But I've heard her say also that we need also as humans something that unites us. We need to have like a uniting something. We need to feel united by the greater. And I realized that when I thought about that, I'm like, wow, that's really true. And I feel this is a really beautiful like point of unification that we can do. Really not, I mean, some people will do that through the school, and some people can do that in their life, and choosing to show up for the earth. And rather than saying, I own this part of the earth and you shouldn't be here, I own that. I mean, really, where has that gotten us? Mm-hmm. You know, and are we here to grow? And rather, can we actually show up sharing what we have, sharing, not like hoarding, this is mine and this is my bushel of apples or acorns or whatever you believe that you have that needs to be hoarded, but actually we can learn from the earth and be that stream of abundance that the Kontomble show that we all come from. And tending to the other world is tending to that stream which we all spring from, as they show. And so to make offerings to the other world and to show up in this way and to tend to that which also is life, is nature, then we return to that natural stream of creation and we feed that which feeds us, and like that, you know, infinity sign. So the Earth's amulet, as the Kontomble named it, is we're coming together ultimately in support of the Earth. And one of the sessions per month will be, the last I heard the Kontomble call it, who knows if it will change, is called Earth Reports. And so each month, because that's what they're saying, that the Earth is changing so rapidly, and what needs focus is it shifts and it changes. And so the Kontomble will be sharing these Earth reports that they're talking about, ways that we can essentially support the Earth. And then one of the sessions each month will be like live teaching or multidimensional teaching according to the group that's gathering and according to what they feel wherever we are at, and then what they see is like most needed. So it's dynamic as they are. And then simultaneously there's these different currents that are flowing together. Simultaneously I'll be doing one-on-one Kontomble sessions and mentoring with the people who are the women that are a part of it to help draw out their medicine. And also this dear friend that I completely adore, Florencia, she's the, I guess you could say, the other teacher, facilitator in the school, that she is so amazing and she is so connected to the realm of the whales. And I like, she's one of my, I would say, like primary healers or something that I look to or that I work with, that she's so connected to the whales. And I've received like such deep soul healing from working with her and the whales and these like clearings and all of that, that they're able to facilitate long distance also, because we're in different parts, you know. And so Florencia and I will be working with the little people and the whales, and the ocean goddess has shown up too. And it was so wild too, because at first I was trying to explain something that felt so abstract. And I'm more comfortable, you know, I can talk more about the little people because I work with them all the time. And all of a sudden I was like, I don't know what's happening. I feel like I'm underwater. It felt so abstract. And then I didn't know how to talk about the school because I felt like I was underwater describing it or something, but I knew that the ocean goddess was there. And I was like, I don't know, it feels like there's a boat that we're on. We're getting on this boat. The boat is going across the water. It's a 9-month journey. We're going into these unknown waters. Like the goddess is at the helm and she's guiding the journey. I could only say what I was feeling. And then lo and behold, when Sylvie started researching these different ocean goddesses, what they were saying, they were like, she said to also like guide voyages across the ocean. She protects the ships and stuff. I was like, what the fuck is happening? Oh my God, it's real. And so
I love that you still have that as well.
Oh yeah, I definitely know. Like, what's happening? And then we're also dedicating a part of everybody's tuition to a conservation group that's helping like the whales in a very practical way, you know. So we're working the kind of like spiritual dimensions of things, and then also I think it's like $250 from everybody's tuition that will go towards that, and then we'll be able to give to that organization. So we're trying to kind of encourage the both like very practical ways that we can support the earth, and also working the with the like the spirits, the spiritual dimension, to help to bring change. I know, if I get in the energy, I'm like, la, la, la.
Oh yeah, I was reading the website just going, oh my God, I'd love to do this. And I think you said earlier, you said it's actually nearly full, but and you were surprised by that because you said like, oh, I'm not even saying what we're learning.
Yeah,
and that made me laugh, because I said to my housemate, I was like, oh my God, I would love to do this. And she said, what is it? And I went, oh, it was like
Exactly. Yes, my Sylvie and my friend Cliff, because even when I couldn't, I could see, I even started stuttering when I tried to talk about it. I No words were coming to me. All
yeah.
I could, that was the best I could do. And I told Cliff and Sylvia, I was like, I need help with this because I consider them both to be really gifted writers and they write like in such a sacred way. And I knew it needed really sacred energy. And all I could explain to them, I was like, the feeling is it's like mythology comes to life. And
Mm,
that's what it feels like.
mm,
We remember that mythology is real. And
mhm,
then they, and also this friend Diana who worked on the website creation, when it all came together, I was like, oh my God,
mm.
that is so beautiful. Thank you. Because
When I
they're,
was, it's really beautiful. When I was looking at
it's
it
beautiful,
earlier,
isn't
I
it?
really felt like I wanted to say to anybody watching, like, even if they don't feel like they're going to go and
Really.
do it, just go and look at the website and read the stories, and
It's
just
beautiful to experience the stories, isn't it?
yeah, yeah. There,
Yeah, I feel
there's a real
that.
transmission, like in the whole
Yeah.
website of yeah, of what you're bringing through, and
I
yeah,
felt that too. I appreciate it. And let me tell you, those Kontomble, they are like ass kickers too. They're not easy to work with. And I try to hold the fire, and then they'll, if they don't like a design or something that I'm saying like, okay, hold on, Kontomble. They wanted like a work of art. I was like, hold on, we'll see what we can do.
wow,
But
wow.
then when I saw everybody kind of bring it out, I was like, wow, that's really beautiful. They're tough teachers, but wow, they know how to bring out like some deep beauty.
I love that. I love the sense of them knowing our realm that well and our what we're doing.
Yeah,
That they're not
yeah.
just in their realm. Like,
No, I know. I thought about that the other day too, that I hear sometimes people say, and I even heard people say this about the Kontomble when I started working with them, people that I saw at the time as more advanced, like on the path. And I
mhm,
would hear them say, oh, they don't understand like our sense of time, or they don't, they would talk about them in the way. And something about it felt untrue to me.
mm,
But because I considered them like advanced on the path, then I listened to what they were saying. But actually, what I believe for myself is that they totally understand time in this dimension maybe better than we do even.
yeah,
I feel that's a very human centric thought. um, I've
yeah.
heard them reference like pop culture. I've heard them reference so many things. I'm like, what? Why are you talking about that right now? Constantly, because they can move in and out of this dimension. And um, what I believe is that they understand the depth of potential that lives inside of us. And
Mm.
so many things they've asked me to do, I'm like, really? Seriously? And they're like, just trust us. We'll send you what you need. Da, da, da. And then I'm like, okay. Next thing you know, you're with like reindeer in the wilds of Mongolia, or you're on a glacier in Iceland, never having climbed a glacier before, like with the elves. I mean, it gets some far
Yeah.
out journeys, but it grows us ultimately. If you trust the journey, then you see. I was so afraid of life. I mean, really not that long ago. I had so many fears that stopped me from living, and I was so just under a mountain of fears of life. And through trusting in them, yeah, they've totally like transformed me.
Mhm. Yeah, wow. I did read that or listen. I did do a little bit of like research on you.
You're like, I knew that already.
Yeah, yeah, and it was something that I just found really fascinating, and I guess really inspiring as well, because and also, I mean, this is a really, like you were saying earlier, it's such a taboo subject, like I've gone through so much even just putting out my channel and talking about this stuff and talking openly
Mm.
to people about, oh yeah, gnomes and leprechauns and fairies, on the fairy queen, and like it's just, yeah, it's a big thing to talk about these things. And
You're
uh,
connecting about a lot of the different little people, or you're connecting with people about the different little people. It sounds like the different nations of little people.
Say that again.
I was saying it sounds like you're connecting with a lot of, well, a fair amount of people about the various nations of little people. When you talk about the gnomes, the leprechauns, the fairies, or these different, I suppose more
Dragon.
in, yeah. Oh, I love the dragons. Oh gosh, yeah, that surprised me when I was in Wales and also Ireland. I felt, yeah, I was like, whoa, the dragons are alive here. I could feel
Yeah.
that in the land. Holy
I when I
moly.
went to Wales, yeah. I
Whoa, the dragons are alive in the Wales. I was amazed.
yeah. Yeah, I'm really blessed to have a lot of people around me that I can talk to about this stuff. Yeah, and I've got quite a big community around me, so and
That's awesome.
they do see my work, and a lot of people do actually. I have to say, like I was really scared putting this stuff out, but like I've only had positive stuff come back, and like really people saying,
Amazing.
yeah, like especially, I mean, every now and again I'll get messages through my YouTube channel of people just saying thank you, like
It's
this,
amazing.
yeah, to know that either it inspires them to speak out about their experiences and their connections as well. And yeah, it's really,
Yeah, it's so helpful for people. I haven't only had positive experiences, but I've mostly had positive experiences. I didn't know when I started talking about the ancestors, that was easier than when I started talking openly about the little people. Um, but mostly I've had positive experiences. Here and there I have other experiences, but mostly, like by and large, they're positive. And it's nice for people to know that too, because so many people do want to feel they're able to, they know who else they can connect to, because it's a reality that they live with. It's a reality that many of us live with. And it can help us to feel more integrated with the human dimension,
mhm,
and not so like, you know, the
mhm.
witch in the woods or something. You're like in the little cabin by yourself with, the dragons and the, the various like gnomes that are like cooking the brew with you or something. It's a lovely life, but there was some reason we incarnated as humans too. That's nice to hear that you're having those experiences.
Yeah, and I probably haven't put myself out as much as you, so like, and probably I'm quite reserved about who I would share with as well. It's probably that going on.
Well, I mean, you are on YouTube though. I mean, it is available.
Yeah,
It
it's true.
is, but that's nice. Yeah, it's good. But I would say like mostly it's been positive experiences, and what I mostly experience, especially it's been more recent. I love hearing these stories, but I've been hearing stories more recently, especially in the last year, where people are, let's say if they come to a ritual or something and they're meeting so many heart-centered people similar to them, and what's happening naturally is they're all connecting with each other and supporting each other in their lives. And I love hearing that is so beautiful. And I continue to like hear about the ripples that's making in people's lives simply by making that like heart spirit connection is so beautiful.
So beautiful. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Oh, this is just a really yummy conversation. I
Yeah,
feel
thank you.
I've no idea how long we've been talking for, because we had
I
that.
know we've been probably talking for like 5 hours. Like our gray hair. The hair is like, I don't know how long have we been in this conversation. Yeah, it's been good connecting. I know you get carried away. I guess, yeah, I'm looking at the computer. I was like, right, my battery's starting to die. I guess that's starting to say.
Okay. Well, in that case,
Yeah.
is there anything else that you would like to, is there anything you'd like to finish with, or like any message that you feel that the Kontomble are wanting to share at this time, a main message or anything like that?
Well, when I connect with them or when I tune into them, just know I hear them, whomever may be listening to this, um, them asking us to have courage, whatever we're feeling that thing is that we want to do or we need to do, that we know somehow. that's important for our path. They're encouraging us to have courage, basically.
That's too funny. All right. I'm like, okay, I'm listening.
Is it for you?
Yeah. The word courage is just like, yes, it's definitely for me. I'm sure it's for other people.
Funny.
It's probably for other people as well, but I did
the word courage. Yeah.
Yeah. That is funny. Great.
This is for you, Layla May. Well, we have so much enjoyed connecting with you, and thank you for helping to connect a lot of the, I feel like I want to say the elementals. Yeah, that's what, for some reason it comes through like that. Thank you for helping to connect a lot of the elements. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that's what I was going to ask you before you go. What do you feel the Kontomble have an element that they are part of? I don't know why. I was really curious about that.
They come through. They come through various elements. They come through stone and cave, and they come through water and trees, and they come through the various elements. The particular Kontomble that I'm connected to are connected to the mountains, and so a lot of times I feel really at home, like around the mountains. I'm like, oh, mountain energy.
Mm-hmm.
But they come through all elements. When I've been in the villages in Burkina before, I love trees so much. I always like totally gravitate, especially to ancient trees. I'm like, oh. And then you'll hear stories in the villages in Burkina about the ancient baobab trees and how there's like villages of Kontomble that live in there. And I imagine there'd be stories close to where you are.
I see that. I see.
Right?
Yeah, there are certain trees, and I'm like, oh, that's like a gnome city in there.
Yeah. It'd be like a gnome city. Yeah, it's fine. You're connected like that. Yeah, exactly. So you'll see them and you feel that. So maybe somebody who hasn't been so deconditioned or something, they're just like, oh my God, I love trees. And they don't know why they love trees like that. But as you're experiencing, then you're experiencing there's like a whole gnome city in there. And that's cool.
Mm-hmm. Cool. Thank you for answering that.
Yeah.
Well, just thank you so much. It's just been a total honor to have this time with you.
Thank you so much.
Have this conversation.
Yeah, it's so good to sit with you.
Yeah. Oh, thank you. And thank you. Yeah, thank you to everybody for watching as well. And hope to see you all again soon.
Yes, until the next.
Yeah.